Nobody warned me this would happen. One day I had a waist, the next I had this pouch, like menopause reached in and rearranged everything while I was sleeping. I remember standing in my closet, trying on dress after dress for my niece's wedding. Nothing fit right. Everything clung to places that didn't exist 2 years ago. I sat on the floor surrounded by clothes and cried. The frustrating part? I hadn't changed anything. Same breakfast, same evening walks around the neighborhood, same everything. But my body had rewritten all the rules without telling me, so I walked more, longer routes, steeper hills. I downloaded apps, counted steps, tracked every mile. And that belly? It didn't budge. If anything, I felt more exhausted and more bloated. I started to believe this was just my life now, that menopause had won. But then I stumbled onto something that made me rethink everything I knew about walking for weight loss. Turns out, the way most of us walk during menopause might actually be sending the wrong signals to our bodies. It's not about pushing harder, it's about these small, almost ridiculously simple changes to how and when we walk. Things nobody talks about because they sound too easy to be real. This isn't your fault. Menopause changed the game, and nobody gave you the new playbook. But there is a different way, and it starts with the walk you're probably already taking.
If menopause gave you belly fat that refuses to budge no matter what you do, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. And the walking advice you've been following is actually making it worse. I know that's a hard thing to hear, especially if you've been getting up early, hitting your step count, doing everything you were told would work. But after 20 years as a nutritionist, I discovered that most exercise advice, including walking advice, completely ignores what happens to a woman's body during menopause. Today I'm sharing 5 walking hacks that actually work with your changed hormones. These aren't complicated. They don't require you to walk farther or faster. They're what I call easy mode, because they work with your body instead of against it. And if you've been frustrated, if you feel like you're doing everything right and getting nowhere, stay with me through this entire video. By the end, you'll understand exactly why your walks haven't been working and what to do differently starting tomorrow. Let me tell you why this matters so much to me personally. When I hit 51, I was a practicing nutritionist with my own clinic. I had spent 2 decades telling women to eat less and move more. I had charts on my wall. I had meal plans. I had confident advice for every patient who walked through my door. Then menopause arrived, and suddenly, everything I thought I knew stopped working. For me, I was walking every morning, 45 minutes without fail. I was eating exactly what I told my patients to eat. Lean protein, vegetables, whole grains, controlled portions. And the scale kept climbing, specifically around my middle. That belly fat that seemed to appear overnight and refused to leave no matter what I did. I remember standing in front of the mirror one morning, looking at my midsection and thinking, I give this advice for a living. Why can't I follow my own rules? I felt like a fraud, a complete fraud. Here I was, the supposed expert, and I couldn't figure out my own body. The worst part was the shame. I couldn't talk about it with colleagues. I couldn't admit to patients that I was struggling with the exact same issues they came to me about. So I suffered in silence, waking up earlier to walk longer, eating even less, trying harder and harder while getting nowhere. That shame eventually drove me to dig deeper into the research than I ever had before. I spent months reading studies I hadn't touched since graduate school. And what I found changed everything I understood about exercise, hormones, and menopause. If you've been told it's just your age, that you just need to try harder, I see you. I was you. And I'm here to tell you there's a scientific explanation for what's happening. Once you understand it, you can work with it instead of fighting against it. Let me explain the science, because once you understand this, everything else will make sense. Here's what the research shows about walking and menopause belly fat. A study from the University of Colorado followed postmenopausal women doing identical exercise to premenopausal women. Same distance, same pace, same duration. the postmenopausal women burned up to 30% fewer calories from the exact same walk. That's not a small difference. That means if you burned 300 calories from a walk at 40, you might only burn 210 calories from that same walk at 55. Your body changed the equation without telling you. But it gets more complicated than that, and this is the part that really opened my eyes. After menopause, your body becomes significantly more sensitive to cortisol, the stress hormone. And here's where most walking advice goes completely wrong. Extended cardio, including long walks, can actually raise cortisol levels. In younger women, this isn't a big deal. The body handles cortisol fluctuations easily, but in postmenopausal women, that elevated cortisol sends a very specific signal to your body. Store fat around the belly, protect the vital organs, hold on to everything. So the very exercise you're doing to lose the fat might be triggering your body to keep it. This isn't metaphorical. This is measurable biochemistry. When I learned this, I felt angry at first. Angry that no one had told me. Angry that all those early mornings walking in the dark hadn't just been useless, they might have been counterproductive. But then I felt relieved, because finally there was an explanation. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't failing. My body was following instructions I didn't know I was giving it. This is not about willpower. This is biochemistry. The good news is that researchers also found something encouraging. Specific modifications to how women walk can actually increase fat oxidation by over 40% compared to standard walking. The key isn't walking more, it's walking smarter. Let me explain these 5 hacks and the science behind each one. Hack number 1, the fasted morning walk. This is perhaps the most powerful change you can make, and it costs nothing. Walking before breakfast, before you eat anything, puts your body in a state that's optimal for fat burning. Here's the biochemistry. When you wake up after sleeping, your insulin levels are at their lowest point of the day. Insulin is the hormone that tells your body to store energy. When insulin is high, you're in storage mode. Your body is putting nutrients away, not accessing stored fat. When insulin is low, you can finally tap into those fat reserves for fuel. After menopause, most women develop some degree of insulin resistance. This was part of my own story. At 53, I was diagnosed as pre-diabetic despite eating carefully. Your cells don't respond to insulin as well as they used to. This keeps insulin elevated longer throughout the day and makes it much harder to access stored fat. But in the morning, after an overnight fast, insulin is naturally at its lowest. If you walk during this window, before eating anything, your body is forced to use stored fat for fuel instead of the food you just ate. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that people who exercised before breakfast burned 20% more fat than those who exercised after eating. For women with insulin resistance, which includes most postmenopausal women, that difference is even more pronounced. Some research suggests it could be as high as 30 to 35% more fat oxidation. The hack is simple. Walk within 30 to 60 minutes of waking before breakfast. Water is fine. Black coffee or tea is fine. But no food, no cream, no sweetener. The walk doesn't need to be long. Even 15 to 20 minutes in this fasted window can be more effective than 45 minutes after breakfast. When I first tried this myself, I was nervous. I had always believed you needed energy to exercise. I had told patients for years to eat something before working out. But I noticed a difference within the first week. More energy during the walk, not less. My mind was clearer. And for the first time in years, my stubborn belly started to respond. One important note. If you have blood sugar issues or take medications that affect glucose, please talk to your doctor first. But for most women, fasted walking is completely safe and highly effective. Hack number 2, the temperature contrast walk. This one might sound unusual, but the science is fascinating. Your body has 2 types of fat tissue. White fat, which stores energy and is notoriously hard to burn, especially after menopause. And brown fat, which is metabolically active and actually burns energy to generate heat. Brown fat is one of your body's natural fat-burning mechanisms. When brown fat is activated, it pulls calories from your white fat stores and burns them to maintain body temperature. It's like having a furnace inside you that runs on stored fat. The problem is that after menopause, brown fat becomes less active. This contributes significantly to that stubborn weight that won't respond to traditional exercise. Researchers at Maastricht University discovered that mild cold exposure activates brown fat. When you combine that activation with exercise, you significantly increase overall calorie burn and fat utilization. The hack works like this. Start your walk wearing slightly more than you need, a light jacket or an extra layer. Walk for about 10 minutes until you warm up naturally. Then remove the layer so you feel slightly cool. Not cold and shivering, just cool and slightly outside your comfort zone. Continue walking for 10 to 15 minutes in this slightly cool state. Then put the layer back on for the final portion of your walk. This temperature variation triggers your body to activate brown fat for heat generation. The Maastricht study showed this approach increased calorie burn by up to 15% compared to walking at a constant, comfortable temperature. I do this on every morning walk now. I start with a light jacket, tie it around my waist halfway through when I'm warmed up, then put it back on at the end when I'm heading home. It's become automatic. There's a bonus effect that many women have reported. This kind of temperature training can help reduce the severity of hot flashes over time. Your body becomes better at adapting to temperature changes instead of overreacting to them. When I visited India and spoke with women there about their daily habits, many of them mentioned the importance of not always being in perfectly climate-controlled environments. Their bodies were more adaptable. Hack number 3. The post-meal walk. You've probably heard you should wait after eating to exercise. For intense exercise, that's true. But for gentle walking, the opposite applies, and it might be the most important hack for belly fat specifically. A short walk immediately after your largest meal is one of the most effective things you can do for blood sugar control and belly fat reduction. Here's why this matters so much after menopause. When you eat, your blood sugar rises. Your body releases insulin to bring it back down. In women with insulin resistance, this process is slow and inefficient. Blood sugar stays elevated for longer than it should. And when blood sugar stays elevated, that excess glucose gets converted to fat, particularly around the belly. Walking right after eating changes this dynamic completely. When your muscles contract during walking, they pull glucose directly out of your bloodstream to use for energy. This reduces the spike without requiring as much insulin. A study from the University of Otago found that a 10-minute walk after meals reduced blood sugar spikes by up to 22%. That's significant. Every time you prevent a spike, you're preventing fat storage. Do this after every large meal and you're preventing fat storage multiple times a day. The American Diabetes Association has even updated their guidelines to recommend post-meal walking specifically, because the evidence is so strong. The hack is this. After your biggest meal of the day, usually lunch or dinner, take a gentle 10 to 15-minute walk. It doesn't need to be fast. A leisurely stroll is enough. You're not trying to burn calories with this walk. You're supporting your metabolic response to food. I call this my kitchen walk. As soon as I finish dinner, before I sit down on the couch, I walk around the neighborhood for 15 minutes. It's become one of my favorite parts of the day. I notice I sleep better on nights I do it. My digestion feels smoother. And I've seen a real difference in my waistline since making this a consistent habit. On days when I can't get outside because of weather or timing, I just walk around my house or march in place while watching something on TV. The movement is what matters, not the setting. Hack number 4. Nasal breathing. This might be the simplest hack, but don't underestimate its impact. When you breathe through your mouth during exercise, you tend to take rapid, shallow breaths. This activates your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response. Your body interprets this as stress. It raises cortisol. And as we discussed earlier, Elevated cortisol after menopause triggers belly fat storage. Nasal breathing does the opposite. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state. It signals safety to your body. It lowers cortisol. And it produces nitric oxide in your nasal passages, which improves oxygen delivery to your muscles and tissues. There's another benefit specific to fat burning. A study in the International Journal of Kinesiology found that nasal breathing during moderate exercise increased the proportion of fat used as fuel compared to mouth breathing. When you breathe through your nose, you're actually optimizing your body's fuel selection toward fat. The hack is straightforward. During your entire walk, breathe only through your nose. Both inhale and exhale through your nose. If you find yourself needing to open your mouth to breathe, you're walking too fast. Slow down until you can breathe comfortably through your nose the entire time. This was challenging for me initially. I was so conditioned to think harder was better. Fast pace, heavy breathing, feeling like I was really working. But that approach was actually sabotaging my hormones. When I slowed down enough to maintain nasal breathing for the entire walk, something shifted. My walks became calmer, almost meditative. My stress levels dropped noticeably. I started enjoying my walks instead of grinding through them, and paradoxically, my results improved. Hack number 5. Zone 2 heart rate. This is where we get specific about intensity, because intensity matters more than most people realize for fat burning. Exercise physiologists divide effort into heart rate zones. Zone 1 is very light, barely feels like exercise. Zone 2 is moderate. You can talk comfortably, but not sing. Zones 3 and higher are progressively more intense. For targeting belly fat specifically, Zone 2 is optimal. Here's why. In Zone 2, your body primarily burns fat for fuel. This is called the aerobic fat burning zone. When you push harder into higher zones, your body switches to burning primarily carbohydrates because they provide quicker energy. For general cardiovascular fitness, those higher zones are beneficial. But for specifically burning stored fat, especially that hormonal belly fat, Zone 2 is where you want to be. Research from the American College of Sports Medicine confirms that moderate intensity exercise in Zone 2 results in proportionally more fat being burned than higher intensity exercise. It's not about total calories. It's about where those calories come from. To find your Zone 2, there's a simple formula that works for most people. Subtract your age from 180. That number is approximately your Zone 2 heart rate ceiling. For a 57-year-old woman like me, that's about 123 beats per minute. You want to stay at or below that number during your walk. If you don't have a heart rate monitor, use the talk test. If you can carry on a full conversation but couldn't sing a song, you're probably in Zone 2. If you're breathless between sentences, you're too high. When I started actually measuring my heart rate during walks, I was surprised at what I found. I had been walking at 140 to 150 beats per minute, thinking more effort meant better results. I was consistently in Zone 3, burning mostly carbohydrates and spiking my cortisol. Now I walk slower and burn more fat. It seems completely counterintuitive, but the research supports it. Before I share some real examples, I want to be honest with you about something. For some women, especially those with severe hormonal imbalances or significant insulin resistance, these walking hacks alone may take months to show meaningful results. The metabolic changes from menopause can be stubborn. The thermogenic resistance your body develops is real. That's exactly why many women in our community have been using a concentrated compound that specifically targets that resistance. It contains Himalayan ginger, ceremonial green tea, and Seville orange peel in therapeutic doses. These are some of the same compounds I studied when I was researching how traditional spice-based remedies affect metabolism. What makes it different is that it works with postmenopausal biochemistry, not against it. There are no harsh stimulants, which is important because stimulants can make cortisol problems worse for women our age. I'll leave a link in the pinned comment if you want to learn more. But whether you try it or not, these 5 walking hacks will absolutely help. Let me share what this looks like in real practice. A woman in our community, Diane, she's 59, had been walking 5 miles a day for 3 years with absolutely no change in her belly fat. She was exhausted and frustrated, seriously ready to give up on exercise entirely. She started implementing these hacks. Fasted morning walks of just 20 minutes instead of her hour-long post-breakfast walks. Temperature variation with her jacket. A 10-minute walk after dinner. Nasal breathing throughout. Keeping her heart rate in zone 2 instead of pushing hard. She was actually walking less total distance than before. But the walks were strategic. Within 2 months, her waistline started changing. After 4 months, she had lost 3 inches around her middle. Not because she tried harder, because she worked smarter. Another viewer, Linda, 54, had severe insulin resistance. Her fasting glucose was in the pre-diabetic range and concerning her doctor, who was recommending medication. She started doing the post-meal walks specifically, 10 minutes after lunch and 10 minutes after dinner, along with the nasal breathing technique throughout. After 6 weeks, her fasting glucose had dropped significantly. Her doctor was genuinely impressed and agreed to hold off on medication. And the belly fat she thought was permanent started to shift. These aren't dramatic before and after transformations. They're sustainable changes that work with your body instead of demanding more from it. Let me address some common mistakes I see women making. The first mistake is thinking longer is always better. It's not. A strategic 20-minute walk beats an hour of the wrong kind of walking. Quality over quantity. The second mistake is walking with tension and stress. If you're rushing through your walk, thinking about everything you need to do, resenting the time it takes, your cortisol spikes. That's not metaphorical. Find ways to make your walks enjoyable. Listen to something you love. Walk somewhere beautiful. Think of it as your time, not a chore. The third mistake is inconsistency. 3 strategic walks per week, every week, beats 7 intense walks followed by 2 weeks of nothing. Your hormones respond to consistent signals, not sporadic efforts. The fourth mistake is expecting immediate results. Menopause weight didn't appear overnight, and it won't leave overnight. Give these hacks 8 to 12 weeks before judging their effectiveness. For those of you who have tried everything and still struggle with that stubborn resistance, I want to come back to the compound I mentioned earlier. The concentrated formula with Himalayan ginger and ceremonial green tea has helped many women break through the barrier that makes diet and exercise alone so frustrating. It's designed specifically for postmenopausal metabolism and how our bodies process fat differently now. It's not for everyone. But if you've been doing everything right and still struggling, it might be worth exploring. I'll leave a link in the pinned comment. Let me summarize what we covered today. Hack 1. Fasted morning walks. Walk before breakfast to maximize fat burning when insulin is naturally low. Hack 2. Temperature contrast walks. Vary your layers to activate brown fat and increase calorie burn. Hack 3. Post-meal walks. Walk for 10 to 15 minutes after your biggest meal to reduce blood sugar spikes and prevent fat storage. Hack 4. Nasal breathing. Keep your mouth closed to reduce cortisol and optimize fat oxidation. Hack 5. Zone 2 heart rate. Keep your heart rate at 180 minus your age to stay in the optimal fat-burning zone. None of these require more time. They just require different awareness. Here's what I want you to take away from this video. Your body isn't broken. It's operating under new rules that nobody explained to you. The advice that worked at 35 doesn't work at 55, because your hormones change the game without sending you a memo. Once you understand those new rules, you can work with them. That's what these 5 hacks do. They respect your postmenopausal physiology instead of fighting against it. When I finally understood this, after years of frustration and self-blame, everything shifted. Not just my weight, but my entire relationship with exercise. I stopped seeing movement as punishment for what I ate and started seeing it as support for how my body works. You deserve that shift too. Try one of these hacks tomorrow. Just one. See how it feels. Then add another one next week. If this video helped you, leave a comment telling me which hack you're going to try first. I read every comment and love hearing about your experiences. In my next video, I'll be sharing specific spices that support metabolic function and how to use them alongside these walking strategies. Because what you eat and how you move work together, and when you combine them strategically, the results multiply. Until then, be patient with yourself. Your body knows how to heal. It just needs the right signals. I'll see you in the next one.